keep buying mulch every season, bags of straw, wood chips, dry leaves. You spread them across your beds, watch weeds break through anyway, then repeat the entire process again a few months later. Money gone, time gone, and somehow the soil still dries out faster than it should. But what if the mulch could grow itself? What if a single packet of seeds could cover your soil, stop weeds, feed pollinators, improve fertility, hold moisture, and then return year after year without you constantly replacing anything? That is exactly what this video is about. These are 7 incredible living mulch plants that turn bare soil into a self-protecting ecosystem. Some grow fast enough to cover empty beds in weeks. Others quietly improve your soil while suppressing weeds underneath your crops. And one plant on this list is so powerful that many permaculture growers consider it more valuable than compost itself. Subscribe now, because this channel is where gardening stops being expensive and starts becoming self-sustaining. And before we begin, comment below, which of these living mulch plants would you actually grow in your garden? Number 7, Sweet Alyssum. Most people grow Sweet Alyssum for the flowers. That is the first mistake. Those tiny white blooms may look decorative, but underneath them is one of the most effective living mulch systems for small garden spaces. Sweet Alyssum spreads low across the soil surface, creating a dense carpet that blocks sunlight from reaching weed seeds underneath. Most weed seeds need direct light exposure to germinate. Alyssum cuts that light off completely, but this plant does something mulch bags never can. It attracts hoverflies. Adult hoverflies feed on the nectar, but their larvae are aggressive predators that hunt aphids, thrips, and other soft-bodied pests hiding around your vegetables. So while Sweet Alyssum is protecting the soil below, it is also defending the plants above it. And when the plant eventually dies back, the leaves decompose incredibly fast because the plant contains mostly soft green tissue rather than woody stems. That means nutrients return directly into the top layer of soil within weeks. Then the real magic happens. Sweet Alyssum drops seeds everywhere. Once established, it quietly reseeds itself season after season, filling empty spaces automatically like a natural ground cover designed by the garden itself, planted around tomatoes, peppers, raised beds, or pathways where bare soil usually appears. It thrives during cooler growing periods and rebounds quickly after heat stress, and the entire garden smells faintly like honey while it grows. Number 6, creeping. Creeping thyme is not just a herb, it is a living weed barrier. This plant grows into a tight, low carpet that survives foot traffic, drought, and intense summer heat, while continuously protecting the soil underneath. But the real reason creeping thyme works so well is chemical. The leaves release natural aromatic compounds like thymol into the surrounding environment. These oils can suppress the germination of nearby weed seeds, meaning the plant is actively interfering with weeds before they even emerge. Most mulch blocks weeds physically. Creeping thyme fights them biologically. The dense mat also regulates soil temperature extremely well. During hot weather, the ground beneath it stays noticeably cooler and retains moisture longer than exposed soil. As older stems dry underneath the plant, they slowly decompose into organic matter, building carbon in the soil continuously instead of all at once like bark mulch. And because it is a thyme relative, you can harvest parts of it for cooking while it continues functioning as mulch. Plant it between stepping stones, along pathways, or between raised beds where weeds usually invade first. One plant. Weed suppression, soil protection, edible harvests. That is efficiency. Number 5, nasturtium. Nasturtium looks cheerful, but underneath that bright appearance is one of the smartest companion plants you can grow. The leaves are wide, round, and layered in a way that shields the soil from heavy rain. Instead of water slamming directly into bare ground and compacting it, nasturtium softens the impact naturally. The soil underneath stays loose, moist, and biologically active. Then there's the pest control effect. Aphids absolutely love nasturtium, and that is exactly why gardeners plant it. It works as a trap crop, pulling pests away from your vegetables and concentrating them onto itself instead. Instead of spraying chemicals across your garden, you simply trim back the infested sections, while the rest of the plant keeps spreading. The roots also release natural compounds into the soil that can help suppress certain harmful pathogens and fungal issues around neighboring crops. And unlike many annual flowers, nasturtium reseeds itself aggressively. The large seeds fall directly below the plant and survive through winter, returning once temperatures rise again. Even better, the entire plant is edible. The leaves have a peppery flavor similar to arugula. The flowers brighten salads, and the seeds can be pickled like capers. It is mulch you can literally eat. Number 4, buckwheat. Buckwheat may be the fastest soil-covering plant a gardener can grow. In roughly 6 weeks, it can transform bare ground into a thick green blanket dense enough to choke out most weeds completely. That speed matters, because weeds dominate empty soil fast, especially during summer gaps between crops. Buckwheat fills that empty space before weeds get the chance. But this plant goes deeper than surface coverage. Its roots release natural compounds that suppress weed germination even after the plant has been cut down. In other words, the weed suppression effect continues after the mulch is already decomposing, and decomposition happens quickly. When chopped and dropped onto the soil surface, buckwheat breaks down into a rich organic layer within weeks, feeding earthworms and microbial life directly where your next crops will grow. But one of buckwheat's greatest strengths is phosphorus. Many soils contain phosphorus that plants cannot actually access because it remains chemically locked underground. Buckwheat releases organic acids that help unlock those reserves naturally. It mines nutrients from the soil and returns them in usable form. At the same time, the flowers attract huge numbers of pollinators and beneficial insects. A flowering patch of buckwheat hums with life from sunrise to sunset. Number 3. Phacelia. Phacelia might be the most underrated soil-building plant in the gardening world. The purple-blue flowers look almost ornamental, but this plant behaves like a biological repair system for damaged soil. One reason growers love Phacelia is timing. It germinates in cool conditions when many other plants refuse to grow. That means it can protect soil during late winter, early spring, or autumn, when garden beds are usually exposed and vulnerable. Bare soil during rainy seasons loses nutrients fast. Phacelia prevents that. Its roots hold structure in place while the foliage shields the surface from erosion and compaction. Then comes the decomposition stage. The leaves break down rapidly, feeding fungal networks and boosting organic matter almost immediately after being cut. The roots decay underground and leave behind natural air channels that improve drainage without tilling. And because Phacelia is unrelated to most vegetable families, it fits into almost any crop rotation without spreading common diseases or pests. It is one of the safest cover crops you can plant anywhere in the garden. Number 2. White clover. White clover is not just a ground cover. It is a living fertilizer factory. The roots partner with beneficial bacteria that pull nitrogen directly from the atmosphere and store it in the soil where nearby plants can use it. That alone makes it valuable, but the mulching effect is what makes it extraordinary. White clover spreads horizontally instead of vertically. It forms a dense mat of leaves and runners that completely blankets the soil surface, preventing weed seeds from touching bare ground. Once mature, very little can grow through it. The root network also protects against erosion and dramatically improves moisture retention during heat waves. And because clover stays relatively short, it works perfectly underneath taller crops like tomatoes, corn, peppers, or fruit trees. Instead of leaving empty, exposed soil beneath your plants, the clover fills the gap naturally while feeding nitrogen into the surrounding root zone. Then every time you trim it, the cuttings fall back onto the surface and become instant green mulch. The plant feeds itself while feeding the soil. Number 1. Comfrey. Comfrey exists in a category completely separate from everything else on this list. This plant is not simply covering the soil. It is mining the subsoil itself. Comfrey sends roots incredibly deep underground, sometimes several feet below the surface, reaching minerals ordinary garden plants never touch. Potassium, calcium, phosphorus, trace minerals, all pulled upward into massive green leaves. When you cut those leaves and spread them around your vegetables, those nutrients return directly into the topsoil exactly where shallow-rooted crops can use them. That is why experienced gardeners call comfrey a nutrient pump, and the growth speed is unbelievable. A mature plant can be harvested multiple times every growing season, producing huge piles of soft leaves perfect for chop-and-drop mulching. Within days, the leaves collapse into a thick, nutrient-rich layer that feeds worms, fungi, microbes, and nearby plants simultaneously. The decomposition process is incredibly fast, creating living fertility directly on the soil surface without compost piles, bags, or machinery. And once planted, comfrey rarely disappears. It becomes a permanent mulch-producing machine for your garden year after year. Plant it around fruit trees, along fence lines, or at the edges of permanent beds where it can grow undisturbed. Because once comfrey settles in, it stays. And honestly, most gardeners do not realize how powerful that really is until they grow it themselves. These 7 plants do something ordinary mulch never can. They grow, they reproduce, they improve the soil while alive, and they turn gardening into a system that slowly begins managing itself. No endless mulch purchases, no constantly exposed soil, no repeating the same exhausting cycle every season. Just living coverage, healthier soil, fewer weeds, and a garden that gets stronger every year instead of weaker. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next video will show you the fastest growing plants that rebuild dead soil naturally without fertilizer.